data. Our agenda today, we'll go over a few housekeeping items. I'll give you a little bit of overview about Donna, a little bit about Conexxus. Donna will give her great presentation, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available in approximately 30 days. You can find it on YouTube, or you can find it also on the Conexxus.org website. If you complete a short survey at the end of this presentation, you will be sent a survey link within 2 or 3 business days so that you can get a copy of the presentation. We do ask participants to send their questions via the question panel in the webinar question panel. All attendees are on mute, and we'll be happy to answer your questions in the order in which they were received. And then we do ask you to please be generic in your questions and do not ask specific vendor questions. If you do have any questions about any of the webinar today or Conexxus in general, you can email Conexxus at info@conexxus.org. Our host today is Miss Allie Russell from Conexxus. And so thank you, Allie, for all the technical works in the background here and coordinating everything. I'm your moderator. I'm Cara Gunderson. I'm the chair of the Data Security Committee for Conexxus. And my day job, I'm the point of sale manager at Citgo Petroleum. Our speaker today is Donna Perkins. She's with Easy Stop Food Marts. And Donna is going to share some great information with us. Just a little bit about Conexxus. Conexxus is an independent, nonprofit, member-driven technology organization. And what that means is that Conexxus sets standards for data exchange, security, mobile commerce. They provide a vision for emerging technology and for trends in the convenience and petroleum space. Conexxus is an advocate for our industry where technology is the policy. And Conexxus is driven mostly by volunteers such as myself and Donna. They have only just a handful of staff members. And so the standards that are created to help all of us as industry stakeholders be able to adopt these standards are all driven by the volunteer members. And we certainly glean into the membership's knowledge and expertise, such as Donna today. We do have webinars on almost every single month, with the exception of October, where we have the NACS Tech and then the NACS Tech Edge series at NACS. As you can see, we've had a lot of great webinars, and in 2018, we have more great webinars scheduled. So in January, we have Securing and Pen Testing Your Mobile Payment App by Synopsys. In February, we have a Unified Threat Management. What is it and why is it important by Omega? In March, we're actually going to have a penetration testing, and they're actually going to do some hacking, which is pretty fun to watch, and How to Test What Matters Most by the folks at Coalfire. And then in May, we have QIR, which is the Qualified Integrators and Resellers Program Update. That is what the petroleum technicians are required to have for certification status for all level 4 merchants for their PA, DSS, POS software installations. And that's by Chris at Control Scan. Conexxus has an annual conference. This year, or I should say, it's almost this next year in 2018, will be April 29th to the 3rd in Chicago. And so if you're interested in coming, please be sure to join Conexxus and learn more about the sponsorship opportunities and register. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Donna Perkins, who's the Price Book Manager at Easy Stop Food Marts. Thank you, Donna.
All right, thanks, Cara. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donna Perkins, and I am the Price Book Manager for Easy Stop Food Marts. We currently have 23 stores in East Tennessee. I've worked with Easy Stop for over 20 years. A critical piece of my journey with Easy Stop is improving our efficiency through electronic data. Currently, we receive electronic price book files, we receive invoice files, we receive electronic statements, we send electronic payments and electronic orders. We also do many electronic documents on the fuel side and on the accounting side. We do fuel bill of ladings, fuel invoices, supplier EFTs, bank statements, credit card reconciliation statements, and more. There's a lot of data transfer going on the server all the time. My world is mainly on the eB2B retail merchandise documents, and so that's the area that I'll focus on. Currently, my status is that I receive electronic price book files from one vendor. I receive electronic invoice files from 5 vendors, and I'm working on a 6th one right now. And we send electronic payments to 2 large trade vendors, but we're working on another large trade vendor for electronic payments also right now. So I've got a couple of tiny little projects going on, and when those finish, we'll be even more electronic and continue to move forward. First, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what benefits you can receive from electronic data on the eB2B side. Labor savings is a major benefit. That's labor savings inside the store and in your home office. Invoice imports save manager labor, and obviously store managers are highly valuable employees. We save over $23,000 a year simply on one vendor. That vendor had a lot of cost issues, and it was very time consuming for our managers to locate the cost issue and resolve it and then send that invoice into us. So just implementing that one vendor is a tremendous savings for us. Now that savings grows with every vendor that we add. Obviously our grocery supplier is probably larger savings than that, but other vendors may be smaller. Depends on the vendor and how much time that vendor is costing your store managers. So every vendor you import allows your store manager to focus on storefront issues. Are your shelves stocked? Are your restrooms clean? Is the lot clean? Is your store clean? Are your shelf tags correct? Are your signs correct and neatly displayed? Are your employees present and in uniform? Everybody ready to work and be pleasant to people? These issues have a direct customer impact. Simply put, invoices do not. They don't impact your customer at all. We also save labor in our home office. Administrative labor decreases with fewer errors to correct. Invoices hit accounts payable correctly, and items hit inventory correctly. We reduce the number of missed invoices, which my accounts payable person loves. She says that she would love for me to import every vendor, which isn't really possible, but I keep working towards that goal. But it saves her a ton of time on finding missed invoices on the statement and having to contact the store and go through all of that process. When we added electronic statements, our accounts payable person reconciled a vendor statement in 2 minutes. That same vendor on the manual process had taken more than an hour. And again, on electronic statements, you can multiply that savings by adding more and more vendors. Electronic payments, again, save your accounts payable labor, and they can reduce your banking fees and possibly even save you money on check stock, beer checks. Hopefully we will be out of beer checks after the first of the year, and that makes my store managers very happy, and it makes my accounts payable person very happy, and my banking person very happy. There's a lot of fees involved in all that paper and all of those documents, and the electronic documents reduce those fees so we can move forward and do more with less. A second benefit of electronic documents is accurate data. I previously said that we have fewer errors, but better yet, we receive merchandise at item level without human labor. This allows me to get item level data while bypassing managers that may choose to buck our scanning in mandate. You know, we have the, if it doesn't scan, back to the van. Not everyone follows that, but electronic invoices allow me to get item level data without human involvement. It also gives us faster, more accurate information and can help us improve our cash flow and manage our cash flow better. Accurate data should be just as important to operations. Cleaner inventory provides better information for loss prevention, for orders, promotions, inventory turns, and even labor scheduling. Having the data in the system correctly and quickly is important to everyone in the organization. Electronic item price files improve margin and ensure that the margin operations is seeing is correct. It helps us with our cost inventories because cost inventories are very difficult to manage. And getting that information into the system correctly the first time should be important to everyone. Secondly, I want to briefly address a major roadblock that we have seen to implementing electronic invoices in our retail channel. DSD lag time on document delivery is a significant issue for convenience store retailers. Technically, I receive an invoice from 3 vendors. I receive PDN, which is a pre-delivery notification, and ASN, which is an advanced shipment notice from the other 2 vendors that I'm already live with. And my one that I'm working on is another PDN, another pre-delivery notification. I call all of these documents an invoice because I use them for the same thing. I use all of them to update inventory and to update accounts payable. And that allows me to overcome the roadblock of DSD lag time because both of these documents are available the day of the delivery. So there is no lag. It's just like your manager entering it, only we did it electronically. Many of your national DSD suppliers can provide one of these. We as retailers just need to know to ask for it. And if we don't ask for it, they're probably not going to tell us about it. But in the same manner, we need to keep our eyes open and keep looking for processes that provide savings and opportunities through electronic data. Our entire supply chain should be reviewed for opportunities to improve efficiency and save money. So we start the supply chain with an order, and we send our orders electronically to our grocery supplier. Then we import invoices from them, and we send them credit requests. We also send sales data to a retail analytics firm and to a couple of suppliers, and that can provide a small revenue stream. But we have to keep our eyes open and keep looking for processes that provide savings through electronic data. We definitely have room on orders to improve the number of vendors that we send orders to. I have plenty of room on invoices to gain efficiency there. 6 is not the total number of vendors I have, I assure you. It's a very much bigger number than 6, and I have a lot of work to go to keep moving forward with that. Same on statements. We reconcile electronic statements for every vendor that is possible, and we keep asking the ones that don't give us that currently for better data, for electronic statements, and we will continue to ask until they have that capability. Payments, electronic payments, we definitely have room for growth and improvement here. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and we have to keep pushing forward to get there. Same on sales data. I'm sure there are other people who might want that, and I have to keep looking for them. Third, I just want to encourage all of us, so I'm preaching to myself also, not just to anyone else. I want to encourage all of us to commit to having a strong foundation for our electronic processes. The cornerstone of retail merchandise electronic documents is your price book. And your entire organization needs to understand that price book is the hub. The vendor I'm working on now for PDN, my first real live test import has 3 pages of VIN errors. 3 pages, and that was only like 4 invoices. It was not a lot of invoices. It was a simple little test. Now, that shocked some people in my organization. It did not surprise me because I deal with that vendor on a regular basis, and I know that I have a lot of difficulty getting current reasonable VIN information from them. And for anyone not in price book, VIN is vendor item number. So that's the number that the vendor sends me on an invoice to identify an item. If that number on their invoice doesn't match my price book, the import fails. Everything is broken. So it's critical that the price book have accurate, up-to-date information in order to move forward. And that commitment is daily. Price book changes constantly. And the daily commitment has to also apply once your electronic document is live. So your electronic document, for instance, I schedule a lot of those. I don't necessarily go in and push a button to make that import happen. If I can schedule it on the server, I do. And those run all the time without anybody doing anything. However, someone has to go look at the logs. and ensure that that import actually happened without errors. And I do that process every single day. Someone has to ensure that your processes are functioning. And I actually heard an anecdote at the last conference I was at of a retailer that had a vendor with a failure and no one realized it for 45 days. It's 45 days of invoices that did not import and no one noticed. That's horrific. We have to be more responsible than that. If we're going to use electronic data, we have to treat it with a significant amount of respect, and we have to check those logs, and we have to check those errors, and we have to do something about them. We have to intervene. And let's not forget another critical foundational area, which is security. Security is a critical aspect for our industry, and it's no different for us at the home office than it is for the stores. Our server is contacting the outside world on a continual basis. All those imports that we do, every one of them is our server picking up a file from someone else. And that's a lot of points of entry. And so we have to be sincere and consistent in our efforts to make sure that every one of those points of entry has been addressed by IT and had the security in it addressed. As an example, several years ago when we were actually moving to suggested orders, at the same time we were having our first PCI scan. And so I was working on the project of setting up the suggested order, and our IT manager is working on, PCI compliance and his first scan. And we're just both doing our jobs. I install a new database to work on the suggested order process. And then within days, the scan reveals that that new database did not have a password. And bam, we're hacked. So fortunately for us, this was a hacker that we paid and not a bad guy. But it only takes one hole for a hacker to get in and compromise your data. The entry point on most data breaches is not the point of sale, which is the area that most of us focus on. And it's an important area. It has to be secure, but the rest of our functionality and the rest of our processes must be secure also. We have to apply the same scrutiny to every process that could be a point of entry in our processes. And so every time I add an invoice import or a price book import, the IT manager sits with me when I set that up. I don't do it alone. He's with me every step of the way on that. Now I know how to do all that setup, but I'm not the one who signs on the dotted line for that information to be secure. He is. And so he sits with me every single time to ensure that I'm following all the protocol steps I should be. It doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. It just means we want to be secure. We want that connection to be safe. And every one of those connections should be treated the same way. And so it's very, very important to look for avenues to move forward, but just walk down that path with security in mind and with the knowledge that every one of your processes needs to be secure. And with that, I'm going to hand things back over to Cara and see if we have any questions.
Sounds great, Donna. That was a lot of excellent information. And you and I have been talking throughout your preparation for this webinar. We know that you've given talks similar to this at NACS and several other places. And so again, we really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. But as I was saying, you and I have talked about the fact that getting your price book set up is really the heavy lifting, and you talked a lot about that today. And in a store your size, I mean, is price book like a full-time position then for you or for someone, or is it somebody that can handle price book plus other things, or I don't know. I mean, how would you go about getting started, and what kind of personnel resources would you dedicate to that?
So before we changed our software, price book alone was a full-time job. However, in our current software, things are much more streamlined, and price book is about 25 hours a week. So it's much less than full-time. So I spend a lot of my time doing new implementation within the software and new electronic documents, pursuing new avenues of that. So I do a lot of project work on the side, and other duties as assigned because we're a small chain. You know, I could show up tomorrow and have to do accounts payable. You know, you just never know. So, but no, if your software is streamlined and efficient, Pricebook should not be a full-time job in a chain our size.
Great, thank you for that. And then once you get your Pricebook set up, then you can go into other things like you're talking about today, like how to do the electronic business to business invoice importation and and things like that. And then do you find from a category management perspective, then is it just so much easier and you know, how is the data? I mean, talk about how that kind of flows into the category management and the promotions that you run.
Right. So your Pricebook has to be set up logically. You know, there has to be a lot of thought put into how you're going to set up the Pricebook. I use NACS category levels so that we can benchmark against everyone else in the industry. I think that's a critical factor. You don't recreate the wheel. Don't do that to yourself. There's already a process set up for that. NACS has it on their website. Go get it and set your Pricebook up that way. But then your category managers have to understand that also. They have to be on the same page as the Pricebook, and they have to work hand in hand with the Pricebook. So another piece of that is ensuring that if category managers need sales data, they know how to find it. They know within the business intelligence piece what to look for. So, you know, packaged beverage is a good example. So if you want to look at packaged beverage, do you want to look at bottled water? Do you want to look at carbonated soft drinks? Do you want to look at energy drinks, sports drinks? Which one of those do you want to look at? Or do you want to look at all of them? So all of that has to be known to the category managers, and they have to understand how to function within the business intelligence software so that they can get to what they need. And they have to be willing to say, hey, I'm trying to find this and I can't get there. And it may be that maybe I missed a brand. You know, maybe the item's there and I didn't apply a brand correctly. Well, all of that data is critical when you get to the business intelligence side. So Pricebook, again, is important not just for your invoices and your suggested orders and those kind of things, but even looking at analysis on the back end. You need your brands applied correctly, your sizes applied correctly. All of those things need to be accurate for the category managers to have an accurate view of how things performed.
Great, thank you. And then to dovetail to that question, do you involve your category managers when you're setting up the Pricebook so that you can, to your point, get your hierarchies correct? Like you talked about packaged beverages, and then and you know, like each brand has their own set of energy drinks, to use your example, and so that it can roll up appropriately to the different major distributors. Right.
Yep. So all of that has to be managed when you're setting up your Pricebook. And yes, when I set mine up originally the first time and the second time, because basically when we started the second software, I didn't bring my old Pricebook over, because anybody who's done Pricebook knows that if you've had your Pricebook a year, you've got junk in there. I'd had mine for several years and I knew there was junk in there. I didn't want it, so I started clean. But you have to work with the person who's in marketing and category management to be sure that you have the ability to give them data that's meaningful to them on the back end. And so that they understand how to get that data. So yes, I worked with them both times. Both times I had to go through the whole Pricebook and say, okay, are these items where you believe they should be? Because some items are up for interpretation, shall we say. So, you know, a sports drink is a sports drink. However, there are some items that could be a nutraceutical, they could be an energy drink, they could be a liquid vitamin supplement. So there's 3 different places you could put that item. And so you have to know what your marketing people want to do with that item. How do they want to address that item? And so I'm not going to make that call myself. I'm actually going to go talk to marketing and say, what is this item to you? What does this mean to you? So that I put it in a place that's meaningful to the rest of the organization.
That makes total sense.
Now, there are some items that I will be a stickler on. So if we prepare an item in any way, you don't get to choose. It's deli. So because there's taxes involved in there, there's food stamp information there. You know, if we open it, warm it, do anything to it at all, it's deli. You know, that's food service, and it has to be taxed differently. It's not food stamp qualified. So there are certain regulations that apply to an item that I will not budge on. But, you know, what you categorize an item as, that's really up to you. And so their price book person really does need to talk to marketing and see what's meaningful to them in that item.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have a question here, and again, folks, if you do have a question, please type it into the question panel of the GoToWebinar. And the question that's out there right now is: do vendors send electronic invoice data in the same format for importing, or do you require the same format, or how do you get that all to import correctly?
I have a map for each different vendor. They pretty much have a standard format that they use, and they may you may be able to say, I want my data in true EDI, I want my data in NACS XML, which is how I asked for mine. But they've already got that done, and they're going to send it to you the way they send it to you. And then I basically build a map that assigns that data where it belongs in my system. So there is a process in that of data management, of you have to be able to go find this data element and put it where it belongs. But normally your software provider can help you with that if you're not a heavy data person and you don't want to wade into that data. You can get a person at your software provider to help you with that. I've just done it for a long time, so I'm comfortable with it now. But I didn't start doing it by myself. I had a lot of help in the beginning.
Great, great. We had another question that came in. Do you know, off the top of your head, perhaps what percentage of items are automated versus manual?
Well, my supplier that I import item price from is my grocery supplier. That's probably upwards of 70% of my store. I mean, we get a lot of items from our grocery supplier. So that's the reason they were the first one to do item price with, because it gets a lot of items covered. You know, obviously that leaves a lot of other vendors, but they don't have the same number of items that my grocery supplier has. I mean, all my cigarettes, all my tobacco, all my grocery items, all my general merchandise items, all those items are on that same vendor. And so that was the first one I started with on price book files, because you accomplish a huge task with just getting that one vendor. It doesn't mean I'm done. I want that information from other vendors, but it's less important. And you kind of have to, these projects are small, but they're still a technology project, and you have to quantify the return on investment. You know, is it worth the time you're investing to get this done? So I had a project, I wanted item price from another beverage vendor, and went through the process and got a quote from the programmers, and they were like, it's going to be 10 grand. Well, I get like 3 new items every couple of months from them. There's no way I can say that 10 grand is worth, you know, that. I think a lot of myself, but I don't think that much of myself. There's just no return on investment for that. It's not a reasonable cost for what you're going to gain. And you have to look at every one of those electronic documents the same way, and say, what can I gain from this? What efficiencies do I gain? What can I save? And that's when you apply, is the cost of getting that done worth it? You know, an invoice import is totally different, because then I'm saving 23 store managers time. Well, that's a no-brainer.
Right. Do you know offhand what percentage of revenue your grocery provider brings in?
Oh, I do not know that off the top of my head.
Okay. And then why do you feel that the DSD suppliers are struggling to really adopt the electronic data importation?
Well, it's just really a logistics issue for the DSD suppliers. So most DSD suppliers, the invoice does not exist until they're on your lot. It's not like my grocery supplier who picks a truck in the middle of the night and sends me an invoice before 7 a.m. That's a totally different world. The DSD supplier, that invoice does not exist until they drive on my lot and see what I need. And then they build a document, print it at my store manager signs it, and then they move on about their day. The corporate home office of that DSD supplier may not have that document until tonight, tomorrow. It could be anytime after that. So it's not a technology roadblock for them. It's a logistics issue. Until they sync their handheld, the home office at the DSD supplier doesn't have the data to send me. So the ones that pre-sell, so in our region, most of them have started pre-selling, which means they're creating an order before the truck gets there. And so the pre-delivery notification and the advanced shipment notice are created from the order. Now, there could be changes once the truck hits the lot, but that's rare. In my instance, it's kind of rare for that to happen. Most of my documents are fine, and my store manager don't have to make any adjustments. But occasionally we do get some where, I mean, say they drop a case of beer and they can't sell it to me now. So they have to remove that from the invoice. But it's on my pre-delivery notification import because that import came from the order. But my store manager has the ability to go in and change that document. So the thing that gives them the ability to do pre-delivery and advanced ship notice is a pre-sale order. So it's just a logistical order. I mean, it's just a logistical issue for them, really. It's getting the data quickly.
Yeah. Do you ever see the opportunity to provide the DSD vendors with your sales data so that they can try and do, for lack of a better term, pick the truck?
Yes, I've actually started a conversation with one of my DSD suppliers about that. We've not really done any significant work on that, but it is a project that I'm talking to them about so that they could build an order from my sales. Or could I send them an electronic order, the way I do my grocery supplier? So I'm actually in conversations with one of my DSD suppliers on that. I don't know how open they are to it, but I started the conversation. They haven't told me to shut up yet, so hopefully we can move forward with that.
Well, from the few that are listening here today, maybe perhaps you'll have some friends in that space and we can start moving the market.
Yeah. Somebody's got to start, somebody's got to be there.
That's right. That's right. And you certainly are at the forefront of that, and we certainly appreciate your time and, again, sharing your knowledge today. And there are no further questions, and so we're going to conclude the webinar today. But again, thank you, Donna, and thank you, Allie, for all of your information today. Again, the website for Conexxus is conexxus.org. You can email Conexxus at info@conexxus.org, and you can see our LinkedIn profile or follow us on Twitter. So I hope everybody has a great day, has a great holiday. And again, Donna, thank you very much. And
thank you.
We'll see everybody in January. Bye-bye.
Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.